You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Packers Talk.
Welcome to the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. I'm your host, Miles Teddick, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are diehard Packers fans that love talking about the Pack. We are not getting into all the national sports media talking points and nonsense. We're sticking to real football. We're diving into the top topics around the Pack every week, breaking down games during the season and sorting through all the drama and rumors and sometimes the quiet parts of the offseason. If y'all want to support this podcast, please spike that like button for us. Give us a follow on those socials and subscribe to the Packers Talk Network YouTube channel. So take a couple seconds right now. Packers Talk Network, type it in the YouTube button or in the YouTube search bar. Hit search, hit subscribe. Takes a matter of seconds and makes a great deal of difference to us. So thank you to all of our listeners and subscribers. We love you. Tonight, we got a little bit of OTAs. We have real Packers playing real football on a field. So this will be cool. Got some stuff to talk about. And maybe overreact too. You know, I mean, that's pretty much all we can do this time of year, but we might as well. Why not? But first, the show is once again sponsored by Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans, as well as Bucks tickets, Brewers tickets, Summerfest tickets. Got to get them. Check them out. Summerfest is coming up, y'all. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. Remember, support those local Wisconsin businesses. If you're not in Wisconsin, support your local businesses. Good evening, Tim. How are we doing, sir?
Good evening, Miles. Happy OTA season.
Yeah, I call it short season. So we get to watch guys run around in shorts and then call them the GOAT. You know, and say things like, who's stopping this trio, stuff like that.
Yeah, all the ridiculousness. And then, you know, if somebody's a second team player, then he's a bust. And what the hell were they doing thinking acquiring that guy? And yeah, it's overreaction season. But yeah.
A lot of second year guys are in trouble, according to Packers Twitter.
Oh, everybody is. Everybody's in trouble that's not already a starter. Like this team that. You can only have 11 guys on the field at once, but the Packers somehow should have like 30 of them on the field at once, or else it's not working out for them. So, yeah, it's nice that they're practicing and it's actual kind of real football. I mean, there's not pads on. They're not going full speed, but we're getting to see them move around and seeing some of the new free agent additions, the draft picks. So that's kind of cool. But, yeah, some of the craziness that came out of it last week was like, geez, this is one small practice of of the few that are going to go on now between OTAs and minicamp. And then they actually get to the practices that mean a little more in training camp and get the pads on and stuff like that. So it really doesn't mean a whole lot. Like, let's not, this isn't going to make or break their season or anybody's career. So let's all settle down, keep it in perspective.
Little morsels, though, there's little things that communicate things here and there, like Jacob Monk getting, reps with the ones. That's something.
Yeah,
it communicates something.
It does. Yeah. And I mean, to that point, Elton Jenkins was out, so he's not there. They need somebody to play that position. So between him and Sean Ryan, they seem to be rotating at center, but they very easily could have, not put Jacob Monk in there. So
exactly, it could have been somebody else.
Could have been a else. Could have just been Ryan at center, and they could have filled in someone else at right guard, Jordan Morgan or Belton or whoever you want to put there. But Monk got got some reps there at the first team, which is interesting because he was a guy that kind of faded last season. Like preseason, especially as preseason training camp went on, he seemed to be adjusting and playing well, and it looked like, hey, maybe they have something here down the road, maybe even somebody that can contribute in 2024. And then he never did, to the point where he was, a weekly inactive for them, especially the second half of the season. Guy that was healthy and wasn't able to, even dress for games. So it was like, okay, something happened there. He's not He's not showing progress, in the meeting rooms, on the practice field, whatever. They're just not seeing it. So the fact that he's out there and getting reps with the first team right now is, a positive sign for him, and maybe something that, hey, he's showing that he's made progress this offseason. They're trusting him to get these key reps right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably spot on with what's going on there. We got a little bit from LaFleur in his press conference, and I think he was asked, what can you get from OTAs and from these contactless reps and things like that. And his response was essentially alignment and assignment, right? Which tells you it's mental stuff, right? Right now, they're not looking to see who, is catching the ball the best or running the best routes or, executing the best pulls, on the line, or, pass sets, or, things like that, right? What they're looking for is, did you know what to do when you were asked to do? And were you in the right place? Things like that. The mental reps. I think that's one of the other reasons why you'll see, some guys sitting back and not taking reps here is, like Quay Walker. You don't really need him taking reps. If there's any kind of like, oh, my hamstring is sore, fine, sit down. This is not the time that you need your studs on the field. Having them present, I think, is important. Because having those guys who are your number ones there to not only make sure they're mentally fresh and sharp, but also there to kind of be a good example and good leadership for the younger guys who are learning alignment and assignment and where they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to be doing. So yeah, I think that overall there's a few things we can take from this. And I believe there was also one point LaFleur did say that, like, I think it was in regards to Cooper, like why did he not see the field more as a rookie? And it kind of comes down to, the mental side of it. Physically, he's a beast, but, you got to make sure that you know where you need to be, when you need to be there, and what you need to do. And it's not always so simple, right? And I don't think that, just because a guy like Cooper maybe couldn't get on the field as a rookie, more than the fans wanted him, or whatever it came down to, he couldn't get on the field more. Doesn't mean he's dumb or anything, but it's like, this is a game of chess, right? And I think that we've talked about that a little bit, but there have been some battles in the past that have revealed that, kind of Ray Lewis against Peyton Manning type stuff. So he's got to be able to play the chess match out there on the field with those opposing quarterbacks and offensive coordinators. And that's not always going to be an easy assignment, especially when you are the quarterback of the defense. And in some of those cases, he was wearing the green dot. I think Quay wears the green dot. But either way, he's a central piece, and that position is just a central piece of the defense. So you got to have a guy there who, and a lot of times I think we saw McDuffie in there because he was more of a veteran guy that had probably a better grasp on the situation and the system. And you'd rather have that guy there who knows what to do. Maybe he's not the best at doing it, right? He's not the fastest and most explosive, whatever, but he knows what to do. And then that transition happens when Cooper starts picking up that side of the defense. But I think that could be something that's happening with Monk, like what you were saying. And that could be happening with several guys, right? There's a lot of guys going into year two. Jordan Morgan is one that I think still flies under the radar, and just because it's not always that interesting to talk about a line, but, like, he's a first round pick, man. Like, this is a guy who you want him starting. He should be kind of a big deal. And, guys like that taking their second year step should be that much better. So I'm kind of excited. I think somebody else shouted it out on Twitter earlier. Excuse me. We talked about it too, that you've basically got a second draft class coming in that you didn't really get to use last year. So, I don't know. OTAs are tipping us off to a little bit of where we're starting. That's a fair statement, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a starting point, and it gives you some ideas of like what they're thinking as far as who's going to play where. We talk about offensive line. You can say that with the secondary as well, and that was one of the other things that kind of stood out is the fact that we expected, I think everyone really expected, they moved Hobbs around. He played some nickel. He played outside. No surprise there, but it kind of brings up this scenario of like, if everybody's healthy in that secondary, and if Jair's back, which maybe he will be, apparently they've put an offer out there for a revised contract. If they're all back, like where does Bullard fit exactly? Right? Like
That's a good question.
And I'm not like, I don't want to bury the kid. He's a second round pick. He played a lot of football for him last year. Yeah, he was kind of up and down, but he was playing nickel. He was learning nickel. He was learning safety. That's a lot for a rookie to take on, whether or not he played. I know he previously played both roles at Georgia, but this is a new defense in the NFL as a rookie trying to learn. And in some of those games, because of injuries, he had to, play both spots, right? He had to go nickel, flip back to safety. It was a lot for him. So yeah, he was up and down. Some weeks he struggled. Other weeks he, showed a lot of promise. You can definitely see the potential there. But I mean, right now, is he going to take Evan Williams' job at safety? Like, I don't know. Evan Williams looked pretty damn good as a rookie. Like he looked like a guy that's not going to leave the field. And then when you look at the cornerback room, Nixon, Hobbs, like they're going to play. Like they didn't sign Hobbs to sit on the bench, right? And if we potentially add Alexander back, like he's not leaving the field. So now you're kicking Hobbs inside to nickel. Where's Bullard playing? Like a lot of things have to play out, and it's super early. And the Alexander situation, if that ever gets resolved, like we got to see what happens there. Injuries happen. If maybe Williams has a second-year slump and Bullard takes the safety position next to McKinney, who knows? It's going to work out, I think, in the long run here through training camp into the season. But just like looking at it right now, what their potential secondary could be, it looks good, but it's also like hard to find how Bullard's going to get a lot of snaps on that defense. Like, I guess they could play the situational matchup, like, hey, we like him better against this opponent this week sort of thing. And maybe they do that, but I'm not sure still how much that gets him on the field, how long they do that, what the matchups are that they would like him in more than, say, Evan Williams or, bumping Hobbs out to the outside, bumping Hobbs outside and Bullard taking over the slot. I don't know, but just thinking like through this thing, it's, I don't know. It's right now, it's hard to figure out where he's going to fit in as like an every down player or even a, situational rotational player right now.
Well, I think there's a lot of that. And I think those are the kind of problems Goot wants to have. Obviously, injuries will happen. And you can't be certain, like you're saying, Evan Williams looked great last season. You can't be certain it'll continue. You hope it will, right? You think it will. You want it to. What if it doesn't? What if he gets hurt again? Maybe he's an injury-prone guy. You just don't know. So I think right now, the positive way to look at that is to say you're not reliant on one guy turning out really anywhere, right? You're not really held hostage by one guy at any position. Maybe quarterback, of course, is always the exception, maybe even kicker. But you got those positions pretty well covered right now. Other than that, you've got a lot of good options at these positions. They're going to compete, so you're going to get to find out who can compete, who can win, the competition, and who can kind of rise to the top. But you also have a lot of options, I think, if you're these coordinators, to be more situationally specific about who you're using. And that's almost like a modern NFL luxury. That's something that you just, in the past, you just didn't have enough guys that were good enough to be on the field all the time. To do stuff like that. In the past, we're kind of used to, this is your starter at this position, and I kind of remember when that started changing with the running backs and this whole new concept of running back by committee in the early 2000s. And, but now you're seeing this position by committee across the board. You're seeing it at receiver. You're not going to get anybody to be pinned down as receiver one. At least not before the season. Maybe stats will tell you who that is in the middle or, by the end of the season. But, you can look around the roster and see position by committee all over the place. I really don't think, I mean, besides maybe Xavier McKinney, again, the exceptions being Jordan Love, the kicker, and Josh Jacobs is definitely the man at running back, but you're still, he's he's kind of an anomaly at this point too. You need to give him a break here and there. Tight end position by committee, guard position by committee, maybe even center might be position by committee. The way that we're going right now, we'll see where Elton shows up, but I think it's a great thing to be able to do, because then you can get very specific in how to attack your opposition, and figure out what are they good at. I mean, that was what Bill Belichick was really good at whenever he was running the dynasty of the Patriots. He figured out what you were good at and he took it away from you. And a lot of times it didn't work well for other teams. So sometimes teams could figure that out and they could account for it and they could, get a win in there. But the Patriots won as many championships as they did, because Bill Belichick was pretty good at doing that, but also Tom Brady was pretty good at what he did too. There's a lot of good players throughout that time. But to simplify it, that you can do that now from a lot of different angles if you're the Packers, offense and defense. If the tight ends are healthy, do a lot of 12 personnel. And that can be pretty fun too. There's a lot that can be done. And can you satisfy the fantasy football owners? Can you satisfy the players that, need to produce, need to be the best or whatever? No, you can't. But I think that's part of their evaluation. You know what I mean? Like when you're Goot, you're LaFleur, you're deciding what you value in these draft prospects or free agents. I think that's part of it. Are you a guy that needs to come in and be that dude? All right, well, maybe you're just not the guy for us. But if you're a guy who can come in and just be part of a good unit that's going to go win, yeah, come on in. Stats don't matter as much to you. Let's do this. And I think that's what it's going to take, and it makes you kind of wonder what's going on with Jaden Reed. They put some water on that fire. Maybe it really is nothing. But yeah, what do you think? I mean, position by committee. Am I being like overly optimistic, or like do you think that really could be kind of a trend that's starting to emerge?
I mean, I think there's certain positions where you can kind of do that, but I don't. I think the majority know you can't. Like going back to the secondary, like McKinney's playing every down, right? And
Sure.
if Jair's back, as long as he's healthy, however long that lasts, he's going to play every down. And then I think either Hobbs or Nixon will play every down too. Now then we can talk about, Williams, Buller, slot, all that stuff, how it shakes out. But I don't. No, I think there's certain situations where you can go position by running backs, the big one. Like I think you can win without a star running back. I know Barkley just won a Super Bowl and all that, but plenty of other teams have won Super Bowls without star running backs. You can rotate your backs. Like that's one of the positions. I think tight end could be not on this Packers team. That's Tucker Kraft's job, and hopefully Musgrave's able to stay healthy this year and contribute as well. But yeah, I think there's certain areas where you can do that, but I don't think it's going to take over and all positions or the majority be that way. There's too many guys you want on the field all the time, and there's guys you just to take them off the field unless you have the same kind of player, you're not going to be able to do that. And you want upper echelon guys that you don't want to rotate. Like if you have too many guys where you're rotating and being by committee, that means you don't have enough star level guys, right? Because the star level guys aren't leaving the field.
That's fair.
So that's the way, I kind of look at it. Like go back to what they did last year, beginning of the season with Cooper. Now Cooper had gotten hurt in training camp, so he was behind, but like we were calling for, like, he needs to get more reps. He needs to get more reps. And then he finally did. It was like, yeah, don't ever take him off the field. And he's not going to leave the field this year. In fact, he's a guy that, he's up to around 240 pounds. He definitely looked, from some of the pictures I saw, he looks bigger. And it was kind of funny that LaFleur said, at one point last year, he was down near like 220. So you put some size on him and he's still able to move the way he's capable of moving. And what we saw last, I mean, he's got superstar written all over him. So like,
oh yeah,
that's a guy, like, I know he was making mistakes and the coaches kept saying that last year, like as many good plays as he's making a ton of mistakes too. They just, you don't realize it because he's making so many big ones. And that was because he was learning. He was a rookie, getting used to NFL speed and playbook and all that. Like, I'll take some mistakes still if he can make the huge game-changing plays he was making last year. And you would think now, having been in the NFL for a year, a lot of those mistakes are going to go away. And what can he be now that he's bigger and stronger and has a year under his belt in the NFL? Like, what's the ceiling on him? How great can he be at linebacker for them? So he was one of the players who stood out to me just from, what they said about him, how he's put on, the muscle now to go along with the great freakish athleticism that we already knew he had. And I can't wait to see what he looks like this season. Like, of all the player, I'm excited to see everyone, but he's right towards the top of that list as far as what he could potentially be.
All right. So in short season so far, Tim's GOAT is Adrian Cooper. So I haven't determined who my GOAT's going to be yet, but it's part of short season, man. You got to crown a GOAT. Got to do it. That's all the kids are doing.
Yeah. And I mean, hey, fine. I'll ride with Adrian Cooper.
Heck yeah, man. Hey, putting on 20 pounds, that's a pretty good dude to ride with before you can see how, the pads on and all the real meaningful football. No, so let's see. We got a few folks riding with us in the comments tonight. A few familiar faces. Chris, the casual in, fellas. Let's solve the world's problems tonight. Yeah, let's do it, man. I think we're already off to a good start. Says he's live from Plano, Texas. I'm just directly to the west of you, out here near Justin. Glad to have you with us, Chris. And then, of course, our shower's jumping in. I am overreacting to worrying that Malik Heath is going to be gone and become a brutal force for the Steelers or Ravens. I want us to employ him and Savion in a brutal, rush, hard-nosed power game. Oh, yeah, man. Got me going. Let's do this. I am a big Malik Heath fan as well, but it is a crowded room, man. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to have all of these bodies in there at the same time. You only got so many spots on the roster. So I don't know. I mean, do you keep 7 receivers? I think if you keep 7, Heath is in.
Yeah, but I don't see a way to keep 7.
It's tough.
There's just no way. 6 is going to be a stretch, I think. But I definitely no, they're not keeping 7. Like I like Malik Heath a lot, but he's on the Ravens. He's going to be the same thing he's on the Packers, a number 5 or a number 6 receiver. Like,
I think he would climb a little bit.
I don't think so. Like,
I guess we'd have to look at their depth chart.
I think he's a nice role player and stuff. He can block and he's got good size. And I know when he comes in, he makes some plays. Like, I like him, but I'm not going to overreact or lose too much sleep if Malik Heath's not on the roster. Like, the guys ahead of him are better or potentially better.
Yeah. I mean, that's
what I don't want to cut good players just because he's a physical receiver. Like, I think if we saw Malik Heath play every down or just about every down, I think you'd start to see some of the shortcomings. So I think he's a fine depth receiver and he plays a nice role, and there's a role for him in the NFL and NFL rosters, but I don't think he's ever going to be like this scary good player that leaves and he's an all-pro somewhere else.
Nah, I don't know that I'd see him as an all-pro, but I think guys like that have that attitude and that ability to be a bully can be difference makers in game situations, right? When you need a guy out there to just kind of beat your opponent into submission, he's a good one to have on your side. Now, that is not the majority, and definitely it's a crowded room. We'll see. That's what training camp is for. You can't write him off entirely. I think McCole Hardman maybe is more expendable than Heath.
Sure.
Just from how much they value blocking ability, and really Hardman's value probably is in return game. And it looks like he didn't even get any of those reps. It looks like some of these other guys are getting them. So you don't have to have him. He seems more expendable to me. I think it comes down to, Melton and Heath. That seems to be the battle there. And can either one of those guys force the Packers to keep him?
Yeah, and Heath's a fighter. He's a battler, and he makes the most of his opportunities. He's done that for 2 straight training camps with the Packers. So he can do it again, he can make the roster. Like he's definitely got a shot, and
no doubt.
he's in the battle. So yeah, it wouldn't
Especially
surprise
if
me
he's
again
got the
if he's
mental game down. Like that's kind of what they were saying is holding some of these other guys back and would hold younger guys back. If he's got the mental game down, and we have no reason to doubt that, that could be a pretty good edge for him.
Yeah, and he's a little bit of a different body type than Melton and Hardman, so that might be something they want more of now because Golden's not a big dude, Jaden Reed's not a big guy, so they may want that as the back half of the receiver room. We want a bigger guy that could be physical, especially in a running game.
Yeah, no, I think that there's some interesting things. I think who they keep will tell you the skill sets that they value the most, and I think it's obvious you're not going to cut Golden or Williams. They're going to be there, but after that, it'll tell you what they value the most, and maybe where they think Christian Watson is. There's a little thing going on there. Is he coming back a little sooner? We'll see. We'll see. Real quick though, we got another one of the comments. We got Wisconsin sports on the go with Trag. How's it going tonight, fellas? Hey, we got somebody from Wisconsin. I think our Showers is off in Indiana. We got Chris in Plano. I'm in Texas. And then, of course, Tim is up in Pennsylvania. So we need somebody repping Wisconsin on this show, for crying out loud. Glad to have you with us. Glad to have you with us tonight. But yeah, so what are we thinking about Christian Watson? He's out there trotting around, looking good. I think he kind of looked a little bit more beefy. He looked like he maybe put on a little bit of muscle. Maybe that was just the size of the fro, like having an optical illusion for me, because the fro was definitely extra big. But I don't know. What do you think, man? Are you optimistic he comes back earlier than expected?
I mean, what's expected? I know it's been thrown out there like week 12. I think he could be back.
I think week 12 is what I had in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what his dad had put out there. I think it could be before that. I mean, I'm not saying it's week 2, but I think it could definitely be sooner than week 12. But yeah, I mean, he looked good. I don't even know if he had a brace on, but he was just stretching. He wasn't really doing anything. He's going to be with the rehab group. We won't see him do anything in training camp. I think they're going to slow play it, as they should, because one, it's a major knee injury, and two, he has a history of injuries. And yeah, this is a knee. It's not the hamstring issues, but that kind of stuff can all be related. One could lead to the other. So you better be careful. You better slow play it. And from Watson's standpoint too, he should want to be 100% when he comes back, because he's going to the last year of his contract. Like, come back and be able to take off and make some plays down the stretch for your team. Don't come back where you're not 100% and you don't look so good, or you get another injury or an injury that's related to the knee, because then that's going to kill you, right? And I know we shouldn't be, as Packers fans, we're not worried about Christian Watson's contract and what he should be thinking about his contract, but he should be worried about that. And it's, perfectly, in my mind, it's, perfectly fine for him to do that. But yeah, I think he could be back sooner than later. I have no idea, like, what. I don't have an expectation, like, maybe week 8 or week 10 or whatever. I don't know. I mean, let's see what he does throughout training camp, and maybe by the end of training camp, if he's running and cutting or doing, more, then maybe you can really look at it like, okay, maybe he's back week 8, week 10, whatever it may be. But I'm not, I still expect him to start the season on the PUP list, which I think is still, I can't remember if that's still 4 weeks or if it's 6 weeks, whatever it may be. That keeps him out. So yeah, it was nice to see, but I'm optimistic, right? But I don't really have any like thoughts or expectations like he's going to be back by this week. I don't know. I have no idea, but I think he can be back sooner than the week 12 that was put out there.
Well, I'll overreact, and since I'm the Christian Watson fan here, a defender, our Shower's going to get after me. I'm going to overreact and say he comes back the week after the bye week, which would be it's week 5. So week 6? Is that right?
Yeah, they have the early bye week. So
week 5 bye. Yeah. So week 6, cut it in half. Cut the season in half for how long we have to wait. I'll overreact to Christian Watson stretching for OTAs. He looks beefy, man. He looks like he's kind of a little bit more jacked. Like he got his bench press up a little bit this offseason.
Maybe that's what he was working on. He can't really do much with the legs, right?
Maybe he's a little extra time on the weights.
Yeah.
Hopefully not in like a bad way, though, but in like the Edgerrin Cooper kind of way. But relevant question here. Chris the Casual In says, does Dobbs get traded?
No.
Tim says no.
No, I don't think it. Does he get traded? I guess my question would be, when does he get traded? At some point, maybe. I don't think he gets traded between now and the start of the season. Like, I don't think it makes any sense for them to do that, because you have 2 rookies, and yes, high expectations and what you think they're going to be in their careers, but to count on those guys right away out of the gate, even if they come in the training camp and look great, you're still counting on 2 rookies that have never played in the NFL. And then you have Wicks, who's coming off a poor season. You have Reed, who's coming off a night, I'll be nice and say it was up and down for him, right? But way too many drop passes. That's what we would be left with until Watson comes back at some point, which, again, we just talked, who knows when that's going to be. No, I don't think Dobbs is getting traded anytime soon. The only scenario that I can think of is like he comes into the season, his touches, his targets, his playing time starts going down as maybe Golden or Wicks or Williams or, these young receivers pass him by and are getting more opportunities, making more plays. And he's kind of falling down the depth chart, kind of getting phased out. He's just not getting the targets, and they decide to move him at that point. Maybe, and he gets, he could get unhappy. We saw that last year. And they trade him before the trade deadline. But a lot's got to go right for some players for that to even be a possibility. So I don't expect them to be traded definitely before the season. And I guess to be determined on a lot of different factors if he gets traded during the season.
I'll say this. I think there's a battle between Dobbs and Wicks. I think Dobbs has the obvious advantage, but I wouldn't count Wicks out, and I think the loser gets traded. I think those two play a similar position, have similar enough skill sets, and you also have Wicks is not necessarily a rookie anymore, right? He's still younger than Dobbs, but he can count as a veteran in the room at this point in the system. I think it's between those two. If you need to give yourself more breathing room in the receiver room. And I think that can only be determined well into training camp. So I don't think it's something that you would do before training camp. I think it's something that maybe as training camp goes on and you start to look at like, who do you need to cut and what, where do you need to make spots on the roster? And if Wicks is equal or better than Dobbs in camp, I think there's a strong chance Dobbs could get traded. And vice versa. I think there's, if Wicks has a good camp, but Dobbs is better, then I think that makes a good case for Wicks to get traded, especially if there's an injury on another team and they can get, a little bit of extra value for that person at that time. But, a lot of hypotheticals going on there. But like bottom line is I do see those two specifically being the ones battling for a spot. I think, as far as Jaden Reed goes, he's here. You're not going to trade Jaden Reed. Obviously, again, you got your rookies, and then you've got Christian Watson. I don't think there's any reason to trade him at this point. Could be wrong. But there you go, Chris. Chris, the casual ends. Right? No extension for Dobbs' brain. Yeah, Dobbs has long-term risk with the concussion issue, and that definitely factors into things. What are you signing if you sign somebody to an extension? Like that's really what you're looking at. So I think that there's a battle there between those two specifically, and the loser gets traded. So we'll see. But we had a tweet earlier today that is worth reacting to. Let's see here if I can dig it up. What's his name? You know who I'm
Orlovsky,
talking
I think, right?
or Dan Orlovsky. So Dan
Yeah.
Orlovsky tweeted out, and I'm again trying to pull it up, but do you have it?
And I think this was based a lot of some of the talk that's been going on. And I don't know where it originally started, but, Orlovsky put the tweet out there and he said, anyone who says Jordan Love regressed last year doesn't look at quarterback play properly. And then he said, thanks, have an awesome day. Very nice. Very nice of him. Yeah, so I don't know who started this regression. I know it came up. LaFleur was asked about it, I guess last week at OTAs, or he might have even brought it up himself on one of his answers. And he was kind of, I don't want to say pissed about it, but it was kind of something you could tell irritated him a little bit. And I think they asked Jordan Love about it, and he was a little bit like, what are you talking about? I didn't regret, but so it kind of became a thing. It's that point in the off season, like people are looking for things to talk about. People say stupid things, ask stupid questions, and then it blows up and becomes something that it shouldn't be. And I think this is one of those things. So did Jordan Love regress in 2024? And to me, no, he did not regress. Did he have as good a season as what we saw the second half of 2023? No, he didn't have as good a season either, but he didn't take a step back. He didn't get worse. And we can look at touchdowns and interceptions and completion percentage. I think you got to go a lot deeper. And there were also some tweets from, I think it was Warren Sharp, who does football analytics. He's got a big following. And he put out there some stats like that back up Jordan Love, how good he actually was and how little help he was getting from his receivers. And it basically factors in how many times your receiver is making a mistake, like a drop pass that is costing your team potential points, potential first downs, all that kind of stuff. And the Packers were, I think, worst in the league, or maybe there was one team
Top
worse.
of the list, man.
Yeah, like being a
Bottom,
negative,
I guess.
Yeah. being a negative for helping, or in this case, hurting your quarterback and hurting your offense. And I think that was a big part of it. And obviously, he was injured for half the season or more, however long the groin and knee injuries lingered. Like, he wasn't the same guy when he came back from that knee injury. He came back probably sooner than he wasn't 100%, but sooner than he needed to. But he wanted to be out there for his team, and you could tell he wasn't right. Then he gets the groin injury right after that. Those injuries affected him. And for however long, we're not sure, but at least half the season, he was affected by those injuries. And then the receivers were dropping passes and probably running some bad routes, some wrong routes, not helping out their quarterback. So all of that has to be factored in. I hate just looking at, how many touchdowns and how many interceptions and what was his completion percentage and all that. Like, you got to look deeper to what actually was happening on the field and not just box score it. He was not helped a lot around him last season. And yeah, he can get better. There's still a long way for improvement for him. He's still got a long way to go to get to where he could potentially be as a quarterback, to reach his full potential. And I think it comes back to one, health, and two, working on someone, cleaning up some of his mechanics, his footwork, right? But I don't think in any sense he regressed and took a step back to where it's like, man, what happened? Is he still the guy? Did they make a mistake paying him and committing him? Like, I don't feel that way at all. I think the things around him have to improve, his health. He's got to stay healthy. And yeah, there's definitely things he can get better at: accuracy, footwork, mechanics, all that stuff. But I don't feel any different really about him going into this season than I did last season. Like, I feel pretty damn good that he's a franchise quarterback. And if some of this stuff can get cleaned up around him, and I'm not even saying it's got to be perfect around him, because it doesn't, because he can make plays on his own. He can make guys look better than they are. But if just some of it can be improved and cleaned up around him, he could be one of the best quarterbacks in the league in MVP discussion. And I think to look back on this tweet and this discussion that went on, we can get a pretty big laugh out of it in the future if this stuff gets cleaned up. And
it'll be a fun receipt.
Yeah, it's a huge receipt. And I think probably the Packers feel the same way. That's why they went out and drafted 2 receivers in the first 3 rounds. They're telling you what they think. Like, they weren't good enough, and they don't feel good enough about those receivers. And they want to make them have the urgency, right? They want to push those guys to be a lot better than they were in 2024. And that's why they went out and got 2 draft picks, right? So
Not
that's
wasting
how
any time. No, again, the whole he didn't have enough weapons. That's not ever going to be part of the conversation, and Goot's making sure of it.
Yeah.
And I love that, right? I mean, the fact that they recognize where Jordan Love is and their response should communicate to us like, hey guys, Jordan Love is the real deal. Let's stop questioning that. Stop wasting thoughts on that. That's we're gonna put that one to bed. It's a real deal. And now, not only are we gonna get him as many weapons as we can, we're gonna build a wall in front of him. You know, like the bodies they added are large bodies on the O line. So yeah, I mean, I think the idea that he regressed to 2024, I agree with you. It's a box score looker thing. If you watched the games and you put all of the context together, I definitely I won't say he took steps forward, but I definitely saw what I saw in 2023, which was him holding the offense together. There was a lot of mistakes around him, and I think he mitigated a lot that we probably didn't pick up on. And if those drops are erased on their own, not even erased but reduced, you're looking at a totally different box score at that point.
Yeah, and I think the Packers told you what they thought of that offense and like what the problems were by going out and getting 2 receivers in the draft, going out and letting Josh Myers leave. We're going to replace him with Elton Jenkins, and we're signing a big Aaron Banks. Then they drafted Belton in the 2nd round. They're telling you what they think. And I think it also kind of like people went kind of crazy when Josh Jacobs made his comments in the offseason around the Super Bowl, like wanting receivers. And I think that's kind of his way of saying, like, we need better there. Like, there were too many mistakes around it, right? And it wasn't even so much like we need a number 1 guy. Like, they need improvement from the guys they have, and they need to get better and push them. Like, there was too much Jordan having to clean up everybody else's mistakes. And it obviously didn't work for the receivers last year. And I think their offensive line was still pretty good last year, but you saw against the better teams, the Eagles, the Vikings, the Lions, where they were too leaky, right? They were too leaky in pass pro. And Josh Jacobs, I mean, he had such a great season. And when you consider, like, he wasn't running behind the Eagles offensive line, right? Like, he wasn't bursting through big holes. And Saquon, I'm not taking anything away. Saquon Barkley's amazing and he deserves all the credit in the world, but Jacobs was making a lot of his own yardage. Like, he was getting hit at and behind the line of scrimmage and making positive plays out of it. That offensive line was not, dominating, blowing holes in teams consistently week after week. There were games, certainly they were doing that. But, the games against the big boys, right? The teams they didn't play so well against. Jacobs had to make a lot of that on his own. And, I think they recognized the receivers needed to change. They recognized the configuration and the size of the offensive line needed to change, and they went out and addressed that. And I think that's all to help, the entirety of the offense, but specifically it's to help Jordan Love. And, he needed it because the receivers just weren't good enough last year.
Yeah, and I don't think you can wait 3 years before making that decision.
No.
Which it felt like that's kind of what they did with that MVS group of receivers. And, you had a few years there where things just weren't looking great. Obviously you had Devontae Adams, but there just wasn't much going on behind him. So yeah, I think that's a great sign. I think it's a great sign from the Packers front office that they believe in Jordan Love just as much as they ever have in anybody. And so they're not worried. Now we got somebody in the comments here that might be worried. Matthew Tan says, Tim, should us Packers fans be worried? I believe in the Packers. Matthew, thank you for joining us, sir. Good to see you. And I believe in the Packers as well, but should we be worried, Tim?
Worried about what? Like, I believe in them too. There's nothing to be worried about. It's June 2nd. Relax. Like, there's no worries right now. There's a long way to go.
RELAS.
This is not the time to worry. You can worry like later once we get into the season. Maybe there'll be some worries then, but let's hope not. But yeah, just no. Enjoy the team. It's a long season. Like we're not even there yet. We're at OTA practices, right? Like, don't worry about anything right now. Like, don't worry about what the other NFC North teams are doing. Lions just lost their starting center to retirement. Kind of a big deal. He's damn good, Frank Ragnow.
Yeah. Wow. What
so, yeah.
Let's take just a moment of appreciation for the franchise that the Green Bay Packers are, that they are not known for some of the greatest players of all time just finishing their careers abruptly at the peak.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a shame for him because I think his body must just be beat to hell because he's, certainly a younger guy, but apparently had a lot of injuries. He just kept fighting through and playing. Yeah, so it stinks, but yeah, don't worry about what other teams are doing right now. It's a long season and a million things are going to happen. Like, it's going to play out, right? So yeah, don't worry about the Packers. There's anybody that's coming out and burying them or saying their time's over in the NFC North because the division was so much tougher and better last season. Like, those are just fans of the other teams that hate the Packers. So don't listen to them. Ignore them. Like, Packers have a damn good roster. And, they won 11 games last year with their passing offense and their pass rush not being consistent. And I feel a whole lot better, at least about the passing offense next season, taking a big step, right? So if it does that, the sky's the limit offensively. So now's not the time to worry.
Don't worry, be happy.
Yeah.
No, I agree, man. I don't think that there's anything to be worried right now. You could be a fan of another team and be worried about a lot of things. I mean, for example, Bears fans right now are having fun with AI. They're figuring out how to use AI, and there's this fun little picture of Caleb Williams going around. At least I think it's Caleb Williams because he's got fingernail polish on, but he's holding all these trophies, and it's just hilarious because they're not Lombardi trophies. I don't know what kind of, they must be like those off-season trophies that they get every year. But they're, passing it around like this is kind of a fun thing that they can, enjoy. And it's like you're celebrating fake trophies.
That's the quarterback. Bears. Right. That's the quarterback that didn't want to play for the Bears. Yeah. Like, don't ever forget that. He didn't want to play.
Maybe I'll play in UFL. Oh my God.
Right. Like, he didn't want to play there. That's a real thing.
Like, he really considered playing in the UFL instead of playing for the Bears. What and even after getting drafted by the Bears, be like, all right, let's make the best of this. Then he's watching film by himself. Like, oh my goodness. Because not only did he assume it would be a dumpster fire, he was right.
Well, and then he doesn't know what to do, like how to watch film. Like, you need to figure that out now.
Oh my gosh.
Whatever. I mean, that's let the Bears celebrate.
Not it's their kind of like what people were calling on him, right? Like, because hey, too much improvisation, right? Maybe not knowing the playbook well enough. Felt a lot like Johnny Manziel, and here we are. So
yeah, it kind of does, and it's funny because they would have pushed it a little bit. They probably could have got their way out of being drafted by the Bears, but I'll bet there was a way. With it.
I bet there was a way, but hey, they got him, and we got years of trolling material. So I'll take it, and they haven't learned anything, so it's fine with me. They're still celebrating those fake trophies and using AI, so that's good. You guys keep doing that. There's plenty of Packers fans and Packers players and coaches in history of holding real trophies. So we'll use those. But yeah, I'm very, very optimistic. I'm not worried about anything. I see some of the chatter in the comments is about the pass rush. Now, Chris, the casual in, I think, is going a little dramatic here. Is it A, suspect, or B, a disaster? I don't know. I think it could be better than both of those. Where's my optimistic option here? I think, and we've talked about this a lot, but here we are in the heat of the OTAs where we can talk about pass rush. I firmly believe in the addition of the coach DeMarcus Covington. I think he's going to make a massive difference. And I don't think that the problem with the pass rush last season was a lack of talent. So if you're not lacking talent, you need somebody who knows how to get the talent out of what you got. And so I think that's really what we're dealing with. Now, you may believe that we don't have talent. That's fair. You might have that case. I don't know, Tim, you might be on that side of things. But I'm also pretty interested in these guys that they added, the guys they added in the draft and you just never know. You never know what those guys could bring. Adding a few strategic, just glue pieces to an already talented group could make a big difference, and if the pass rush comes alive for this team, oh boy, we're going to have some fun.
Yeah, if they have a pass rush, look out for that'll be a top 10 defense, maybe a top 5 defense if they have a pass rush. But pass rush was my biggest concern coming out of the season, and it still is my biggest concern. Like I don't think they've done enough. The 2 second-day draft picks, I'm not even bringing them into the conversation because I don't have expectations for them to be big contributors year one. They may be down the road, and that's great. I'm not saying that like they were bad picks or they're not going to work out or anything like that. I'm not even bringing them into this conversation. I don't think they did enough to add to it. It's my biggest concern. I don't think, to go back to the comment, I don't think it's going to be a disaster because I believe in Jeff Hafley, and it wasn't a disaster last year because Hafley's damn good defensive coordinator.
Sure.
Right.
True.
It was incredibly inconsistent, and a lot of their sacks and a lot of their pressures came in a few of the games, right, against some poor offensive lines. I get all that, but they still had a much, much improved defense in year one under Hafley. And I believe in him that they can still be a good defense, and the pass rush will be improved. I don't know how much it's going to be improved. I hope a lot, and maybe Covington is the answer, and they use some of their guys in different spots and it works out. And, another year being comfortable in the new system, all those things factor in. I don't know. It's my biggest concern. It's my, the thing I'm most curious to see. And I guess the most scared I am of anything with this team right now is what's the pass rush going to be? I think it's what could hold them back this season, but I don't think it goes to like disaster or like anything like that, where they just, are abysmal rushing the passer and their defense crumbles, because I think Hafley would be able to hold it together and generate pressure, whether that's through blitzes or scheme or whatever it may be. I believe in Hafley to figure things out. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I am too. And that's why I believe that it'll get fixed with a new coach. You identify a problem and you fix a problem, and they won't even talk about the guy that they fired. So it's clear there was a problem there. How bad was that problem? What was the impact of that problem? That's really the question. And they seem very excited about the solution. So I'll grab onto that optimism and say, okay, you're better. You got better, right? Like, at least just from that perspective right there, you got better. How much better? Did you get like 1 or 2 sacks better? I don't know. I think what really they need to do is not necessarily have that many more sacks. It's more that you need those spread out and you need that pressure at the right times, because there were situations where, quarterbacks were sitting back there making a cup of coffee and, and then making their decision afterwards, where it's like, good Lord, like, guys, what are we doing here? What happened to the guys that we had? How is this happening? You've seen them get sacks before. You've seen them, get pressures before. And then in those situations where you expect to see that happen, you don't get it. So I think that made the problem feel worse than it really was. That's not to say that it wasn't a problem. Definitely a problem. Big time problem. In fact, like, it doesn't really matter if you're stacking up 9 sacks against Seattle and, you've already got the game well in hand for most of the game. What matters is, when are you getting sacks on third down when you need to get off the field towards the end of the season? That's what really matters. And if you're not doing that, then that has to get fixed. So I really do believe that gets fixed with coaching. The question is how much. adding those pieces, I think your depth is better at pass rush than what it was before. So I know, yeah, you don't want to put any stock in rookies coming in and having an impact and all that. I agree with you. You know, especially those kind, you know, the mid round rookies. You know, you'd like to just be able to let those guys hang back and not have to contribute. Obviously, you want something out of Golden and some of your earlier round guys, but yeah, I mean, just out of the coaching change alone, I think not only should the edge rushers get better, but your interior D line should get better. You know, you should see this should really be a strong season for Devontae Wyatt. You know, this should be one of those pop off the charts kind of seasons for him. You know, and LVN too. And if you can get a good season out of Wyatt and LVN, you're already ahead of last season. And in my opinion, barring some sort of meltdown on the other side for other positions, you know, Kenny Clark just completely falling off or something. But I really think that the step up to being not only good, but like making this defense terrifying, because you don't have to be the best pass rush in the league to do that. It's not a big step.
Yeah. I think a lot of it, all of it really is internal improvement, you know, like the veterans bouncing back, Clark and Gary. And then I think it's put up or shut up time for Van Ness and Wyatt, right? I know they picked up Wyatt's fifth year option, but it's put up or shut up. And we've seen flashes from both, more so from Wyatt. But I think a lot of the success or failure of the pass rush is going to fall on those two guys. What can Wyatt and Van Ness do? And I thought we were seeing it early last year with Wyatt, and then he got hurt and he came back, and you kind of only saw flashes of it after the injury. Like, is he ever going to be this, you know, game-wrecking 3 technique interior disruptor? Like, that would be so cool to have on this defense, and such a game changer for their pass rush. I don't know. I don't know if he can ever put it together. And then Van Ness, I mean, the guy was getting fewer snaps than Brenton Cox, right? Who didn't even play until they couldn't even get active until they traded Preston Smith. Like, that's how far behind he kind of was.
Brenton Cox also played pretty well.
He did.
You can't take that away from him.
But you were talking about a first-round pick and an undrafted guy. Like,
for sure.
Undrafted guys
totally.
Like, we just didn't see the progress from Van Ness. And I know, like, physically you look at him and the dude's build and he tests it well and all that stuff, but at some point you got to do it, man. You got to learn how to rush the passer. And I think maybe it's, you know, how they used him at Iowa. At times he was playing inside, right? And he's already had 2 different schemes in his first 2 years in the NFL, different line coaches now. And it's a lot, right? And a big transition from college to the NFL. So, like, he's still learning and trying to figure out how to use his hands and how to develop moves as a pass rusher. But, like, it is time. Like, and a lot's going to fall on him. Like, if he doesn't have a good year again, if he's the same guy as he was, like, I don't know where else they're getting pass rush from. Like, Rashawn Gary and who else on the edge? Like, Brenton Cox. Like, I know Cox did, but I think Cox is I think he's a rotational pass rusher. I don't think he's ever going to be like an every down player in this league, right? And so to me, Van Ness and Wyatt are the 2 guys that are really the key to unlocking their pass rush.
Yeah, no, and again, I don't think that it is a massive step to think where they need to be good and to really unlock this defense and the pass rush. I just think it has a lot to do with what's going on off the field, what's going on in the film room, what's going on in the situations, you know, and the other thing that we saw a lot of, you know, Quay got hurt, and it seems like Quay Walker, when he was healthy and he was really starting to pick up the defense, things were really working well. So you almost wonder how much did that lack of continuity at the linebacker position from the green dot, right? How did that impact the D-line and those guys and what they're supposed to be doing and all of that kind of stuff? I mean, those things definitely work together and play together, and a lack of continuity at one position can definitely adversely impact another. So that's where I think year 2 in Hafley's system just overall has a great just like a nice potential for a step up. Just the whole unit should step up and just kind of understand how to operate as a unit a little bit better. Everybody taking a step forward should, rising tide lifts all ships. But yeah, I mean, those guys and what they think of Wyatt, that's another area that gives you optimism, room for optimism. You hear from Goot, he sounds really optimistic about wanting to pick up Wyatt's 5th year and all that. I mean, they really like Wyatt and Quay Walker, and so that's like, okay, well, they know these guys more than we do. They know how they fit in the systems, how they grasp the systems, and what's going on off the field, all that kind of stuff, athleticism, all of it, right? There's a whole bunch of it that goes into it. And they really have high expectations for those guys. So, I think that gives us room to be optimistic about them. And let's just assume that a Quay Walker even takes another step forward. Devontae Wyatt takes a noticeable step forward. Those two things happening by themselves is going to lift the defense, I think, unquestionable. So yeah, there's a lot of guys that could take a step forward after that, right? There's a lot of year 2, year 3 guys that are going to continue to show good improvement. That's what's really exciting about this roster, is you're not really looking at this like, all right, well, we know what this guy is. We know what this guy is. And there's a few of them, who they are and what they are, and that's fine. But there's a lot of guys you're like, we still don't know what he is yet. You got to, give him a minute. I think LVN qualifies as that. You don't really know what he is yet. It's year 3, right? Year 2 in Hafley's system, and year 1 with the new D-line coach. But what is he? I think Wyatt has a little bit more of a grip on what he is and what he could be. I think LVN's still figuring it out. And who knows what'll click, if something can or will click with him that'll unlock that for him. But yeah, those are the questions you need answered. And, just because we don't have the questions answered doesn't mean that it's going to be an answer we don't like. Just because we don't know what LVN is right now doesn't mean that we're not going to like what he turns into. So leave room for that. But no doubt, I think that, I guess what kind of started all of this is our buddy Matthew's question about what is there to be worried about. The pass rush is the thing. That is the thing. Is the biggest question mark for sure. And then he chimes in with Trey Hendrickson from the Bengals or TJ Watt. Now, there's definitely moves that could be made out there. I think the Trey Hendrickson thing is all but dead. I think that's probably pretty much gone. I don't know that that's a big contract. It's a lot of money to commit to one dude when you've got a lot of money decisions to be made. Now, the TJ Watt thing, I don't know about his contract situation and all of that and what you would need to pay him. Maybe it's less than Trey Hendrickson. I don't know. Seems like kind of a long shot as well. I wouldn't look outside. I would definitely look internal for the answers. But Tim, I think you disagree with that.
I just don't think there's anybody right now that they could actually get outside that's going to make a big difference. Other than, I say that I don't think Hendrickson's truly available. Like if he was and they were in on it, then yeah, absolutely, I'm 100% on board. Go get him. He's not available. TJ Watt's not available. He's trying to get a new contract and get paid there. So I'm not even looking at those guys. The only one that's out there that I would say I would like to see him add is maybe, depending on his health, is Jadeveon Clowney's out there. I would be fine with that. But beyond that, right now, I don't think there's anybody to add currently. That may change, once we get the training camp and cut down time and, teams decide to move on from guys, whatever it may be. But no, it's going to have to be internal improvement. It's on the guys that they have. It's on all these high draft picks to be better and improve. So yeah, there's no savior coming from outside. There's no star pass rusher that they're going to be able to pluck off the street and sign. That's going to make a difference. It's on the guys they already have.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And maybe next offseason there's an opportunity to sort of reshuffle things and see what's available in the draft, where you're going to be, who's a free agent, all that kind of stuff. I think this year, this is your group. And, the Clowney path, I think, could happen if things just aren't looking good into training camp. You got to make some cuts, and you need a capable body to come in. And you're like, look, let's get this guy, and let's not let the floor be so low. At least he'll come in. He'll be able to just, from his athleticism, grab us a few sacks. But hopefully, I think if that's happening, that's not good. Like somebody got hurt, somebody's not playing well, multiple people not playing well, multiple people got hurt, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think if that's what's happening, things are going wrong. And definitely your best case scenario is that this group puts it together. You see Rashawn Gary getting stuff done. You see him playing his potential. See LVM playing up to higher potential. And you see Wyatt coming through. You get those guys, and then everybody else will be able to fall in and contribute. And again, the defense really works together. The linebackers having more continuity, I think, is going to make a big difference for everybody. So, there's a lot more. I would say there's a lot more reason to be optimistic about this defense than there is to be worried about it. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. I'm with you on that one.
There we go. All right. Well, I mean, let's see here. We'll find out. We got more OTA practices coming up. So we'll see some guys, running full speed, catching balls, trying to knock balls down. As far as the D-line and pass rush that we're talking about, not a whole lot we can take from OTAs.
No.
Maybe a little bit from mini camp, but we're going to need to wait until training camp and pads get on to really see what's going on with the big fellas. But, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us this week on the Pack Weekly Pod. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and spike that like button for us. Jump on over to the Packers Talk Network YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the little bell next to it for the bonus points. That really makes a great big old difference for us and takes very little effort for you. So y'all help us out. Give us a subscribe. Come on back next Monday night, 9:30 p.m. Central, streaming live of the Pack Weekly Podcast. We'll be talking more about OTAs, and next week will be episode number 99, and we got episode number 100 coming up in 2 weeks. So maybe we can do something cool for that. You guys come back and join us, and of course, until then, as always,